All right, so now it's time to talk about igneous rocks. Igneous rocks, of course, are rocks that are formed from cooled magma or lava. Lava being molten rock above Earth's surface, magma being molten rock below Earth's surface. And depending on the location of the molten rock, the setting which it cooled under, the way that if it came from a volcano, the way it erupts out of the volcano, igneous rocks can, of course, have different properties, and that's why we have different types of igneous rocks. So the best way to identify igneous rocks is to identify, first off, the igneous rock texture, and then second, the igneous rock composition, which we'll go over. There are many different types of igneous rock textures. We're just going to talk about a few of the more common textures, just so you can get an idea of what to look for. So here I have 4 different igneous rock samples. As you can tell, they look completely different from each other, even though they're all igneous rocks. And that's because their textures are different, their compositions are also different. So let's start with this one on my right. You'll notice that there are a bunch of reflective surfaces. It's speckled with a bunch of different colors. This texture is referred to as a phaneritic texture, meaning that it's coarse grained or the crystals within this igneous rock are visible. And you can tell that these are crystals because of the reflective surfaces. You can tell they're different because of the different colors. So here you have visible crystals. That is phaneritic. This next rock, on the other hand, you'll notice that it is more dull, not as reflective. This rock is still made up of crystals, okay? It just so happens that the crystals within this rock are so small that you can't really see them with the naked eye. So we refer to this as an aphanitic texture, where the crystals are so small that they aren't visible. To go along with that, you'll notice that there are a bunch of different holes in this rock. Those are referred to as vesicles, or the texture is vesicular. So this is aphanitic and vesicular. This smaller sample, you'll notice it's very reflective. It almost looks like a piece of dark glass. The texture for this is glassy, believe it or not. And then this last sample, you might notice that it actually looks a bit like a sedimentary rock. You have different fragments within it, but if you look closely, you'll notice that there also are crystals within it as well. So that's how you know it's igneous. So because there are different fragments within it, we call this a pyroclastic texture, meaning that it is basically a bunch of hot clasts from a erupted volcano that accumulated together. Pyro, fire or hot, and clast, okay, pyroclastic texture. The next thing that we want to look at is the composition. So we can summarize the composition of igneous rocks into 3 different categories. We can basically lump them together. We have felsic, intermediate, and mafic. Felsic meaning that it has a very high silica content, and mafic being a high content of iron and magnesium. So a general rule is rocks with a felsic composition will have generally a lighter color, sometimes a light pinkish color, and mafic rocks will have a darker color and sometimes a greenish color to go with that as well. So within these samples, can you tell which ones are felsic and which ones are mafic? All right, so you'll notice that this rock, overall, it has a lighter color. The felsic minerals being the lighter minerals. It does have a few mafic minerals within it, which are some of these darker ones. Overall, the rock composition would be felsic for this one. This next rock, on the other hand, since it is dark in color, it is mafic. Okay. This sample, this is kind of breaks the rule because this is a glassy texture and it absorbs so much light. This is actually an odd example of a felsic rock that is dark, one of the rare exceptions to the rule. So we'll just forget about, I'll remove it, we'll just forget about that one for a second. All right, and then this one, of course, you have more of a overall lighter color, that's felsic as well. If you see a pretty even distribution of light and dark minerals within your rock sample, then that would be an intermediate composition, okay? So basically, all igneous rocks, their rock identification is determined by the combination of composition and texture. So this rock I would refer to as a felsic phaneritic igneous rock, which has a more specific rock name, which is granite. This would be a mafic aphanitic igneous rock, which has a more specific rock name of basalt. Okay, so you're going to look at those two things and then use the chart to match up both the texture and the composition that you're seeing. And hopefully that helps you identify igneous rocks.